The algorithms of the internet know that I will slow down and even stop for dog and cat videos. They keep giving me more. Sorry, our sound system thing. Anyway, they know that if the dog is some kind of terrier in pajamas being silly, I will watch that video from start to finish, sometimes more than once. Lots of folks post these videos to show the sweet and silly sides of their dogs, hoping to destigmatize breeds with troubled reputations. And now I swear I'm bringing this back to Easter, because sometimes when I see these videos, I think of the angel of the Lord at the empty tomb, standing like lightning in front of the Marys, saying, "Be not afraid." Because, as you may remember, biblical angels were scary as heck. In Ezekiel, they have 4 heads, 4 wings, 4 hands, and calves' feet. The news they brought was generally challenging because messengers from the Lord weren't sent around in Jewish and Christian scriptures to let you know what to eat for dinner. It was to give prophecy, judgment, news of pregnancies that were going to be important for future generations. And in our reading from Matthew, to tell Mary Magdalene and the other Mary where Jesus had gone. The Marys hurried from the tomb with fear and great joy to spread the word. The resurrection is the foundation of Christian faith and a fundamental theological difference between Christian orthodoxy and most Unitarian Universalist beliefs today. In fact, that theological difference over literal versus symbolic resurrection was a big part of the birth of Unitarianism, and a sermon for another day. For Christians, Easter is a day of great celebration of the empty cross, the empty tomb, the end of suffering for their teacher and leader, salvation for their people, and proof of the power and will of their God. Without the resurrection, the Gospels tell the story of a social reformer, a prophet who stands up to an occupying government, gains a following, welcomes the downtrodden and outcast, becomes a threat to Roman authority, is humiliated and killed. Without the resurrection, the stone is moved and his body is just missing. Without the resurrection, we can commemorate the life of Jesus and find inspiration in his message of transformation and justice, and mourn the violence perpetrated in his name. On Easter, we honor his memory and so many others who have struggled and perished working against oppression by living lives that seek peace and compassion for all. Today, our Jewish friends and family are in the midst of the celebration of Passover. Passover celebrates the story of liberation of the Jewish people from slavery. In Exodus, God commands the Jewish people to observe this rite as a perpetual ordinance for you and your children. After thousands of years, every Passover, Jewish families continue to share stories of slavery and freedom, and remember these stories not only with words and celebration, but with symbolic food that they can touch and smell, like matzah and bitter herbs. Passover invites celebrants into gratitude, reflection, and family connection. An old friend from seminary, Reverend Ellen Cooper, wrote a reflection on Easter called "Let the Alleluias Rise Up." Ellen was a former clown with Ringling Brothers, in addition to her call to ministry, and had a great gift for story. She passed away very young at 41, about 6 years ago. And I shared this reading with you in 2021, but in the spirit of sharing stories again, and given the effect of COVID time on our memories, I wanted to read it again. This is an excerpt from her reflection. "No alleluias until Easter, my daughter told me solemnly. Shh, the alleluias are sleeping. She pointed to the small raised garden bed being warmed by the spring sun, where I could see the sprouts of trumpet lilies pushing up through the soft dirt. Before Easter, she summed up, no alleluias. After Easter, alleluias again. This is Easter stripped down to its most central, heart of hearts message. We have alleluias in our lives, moments of triumph and wonder, of insight and rebirth. These are moments of transformation when our way of being in the world is fundamentally changed, strengthened, deepened, when we feel more whole, more connected. The exuberant and joyful alleluia is a good way to think of these moments, but as my Christian colleagues are fond of saying, you can't get to Easter without Good Friday. The story of the resurrection cannot go forward without a death. Sometimes the most profound transformations are the ones that emerge out of the deaths we face in our own lives. It may be a literal death, the hole left in your life when a beloved has gone, and you feel unmade by the loss. It may be any one of 1,000 lesser losses, the loss of a job or friendship, the death of a marriage or partnership, a change in physical or mental ability, even the death of a long-held dream. These places of grief are barren places in our lives, God-forsaken places that teach us sorrow and suffering and lamentation. And this is my favorite line. But feeling forsaken is not the same as being forsaken. The story of Easter tells us that death doesn't win, love wins. Like the saplings that sprout among the ruins of a forest fire, like the phoenix who is born from its own ashes, like the crocus that pokes through the snow each spring, like the banana tree which dies but lives on in its children, hope rises. Hope rises up even in the face of death. Even in our wilderness, we are never completely lost. Human beings experience suffering. In this Holy Week, in the midst of Passover and Easter, and in New England with the bursting forth of buds and flowers, we tell again the stories of finding transformation, hope, and community out of loss and struggle. We can see signs of hope in spring, in birdsong, and as new shoots poke up out of last year's decaying leaves. We can see transformation. I need to hear the story every year of new life growing out of death, to hold on to when I am in hard times or grief. Robbie Walsh reminds us, the stories make it clear that God does not do it alone. The motions of the spheres will produce a sunrise, but the springtime of the Spirit, the springtime of love and justice and peace, depends on our human response to the gift of life. Let us tell the stories again.